Washington football team versus Pittsburgh Steelers reaction video. Look, my Washington versus Pittsburgh instant reaction is just this. Pittsburgh got beat. They got beat by today a better team. Now, a lot of people who are watching the previews and everything, especially, and of course, Washington fans were calling me moron and all that stuff because I was calling the Steelers to win by 10. Well, here you go. You're right. Okay, I lost. I'm man enough to take the punishment when it comes. Washington's defense, look, the Pittsburgh defense, what they did to Washington, and I know Gibson got hurt and all that stuff. I don't really think that was going to be as big of a factor as I'm sure Washington fans think. Basically, I predicted, I think, 30-20 in this game, and I did take the Pittsburgh Steelers to win. And yes, I did put my money where my mouth is, so it actually cost me money too. But the Washington defense, I said before coming into the season that I thought they were probably going to be a top 10 defense this year. When Chase Young went out of the lineup when he was hurt, the defense kind of suffered, as well it should, right? But then he's come back in. This is the first time I've really watched them. I watched them a little bit against Dallas and everything, but not with real interest. This one, there was only one thing going on. There was only one game on the TV, and I gotta say, Washington's defense, that is going to be a championship level defense next year. They're not going to compete for a Super Bowl this year, but that defense is where you want it to be. And I said, look, Rivera, Del Rio, putting those two people together, I don't think that this defense is going to be, top 10 in a couple years. I think it's going to be routinely top 5 as long as that coaching staff's together. Alex Smith, that might have been the best game I've seen Alex Smith play in years. The only other one that comes to mind where I was as impressed with what he was able to do was like the San Francisco versus New Orleans playoff game years and years ago when he hit, who was it? It was the tight end there. I can't remember his name. Whatever. But he was the beast of a tight end who actually ended his career in Washington. Hit him on like a slant at the end of the game. It was awesome. But Alex Smith played a fantastic game. I'm going to pull up the stats for both of these guys in just a bit. Pittsburgh, let me say this. Pittsburgh Steelers, drop passes. It's been happening all year. I've been saying it all year. Sloppy. But give credit to Washington. Washington fans, I know you're going to say, oh, give credit. You're making excuses. I'm not making excuses. What I am saying is the receivers for Pittsburgh, Ebron and the receivers, need to catch the freaking ball when it's in their hands. You need to take advantage of the opportunities when they come. They almost had the fumble. I think that would have been the only turnover of the game outside of the Roethlisberger interception late. TJ Watt, he strips the ball, couldn't get on it. Credit Logan Thomas for being Johnny on the spot, hustle, blocker, more catches, I believe, in his career. Just a fantastic game by Washington, specifically Washington's defense. Let me read you the stats. Alex Smith, and he had pressure in his face all night. And what I said in the in the game is that the running game wasn't going to be successful. And I don't care that Gibson wasn't in the game. I don't think Gibson would have been much better in that thing. And you can disagree with me all you want. We won't ever know who was going to be right there. But I didn't think Alex Smith was going to be able to stand in there and deliver the ball down the field. And he did, man. 31 of 46, 296 yards, 1 touchdown. I'm really happy for Alex Smith, man, because his career was almost ended a couple years ago. I might have even still been a Washington fan. Yes, I did grow up rooting for Washington. I know this franchise better than a lot of people out there. I actively root against Daniel Snyder, but I don't begrudge any Washington fans for enjoying this victory. And you know what, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I feel it because as a Washington fan, I remember when Washington was 11-0 in the 91 season, and then they blew it at against Dallas. Dallas hit a freaking Hail Mary at the end of the first half to Michael Irvin, just the nightmare scenario. So I know the pain, Pittsburgh. I know it. I'll get to you in a little bit. Let's finish up on Washington. Peyton Barber goes 14 of 23, 1.6 yards per carry. Antonio Gibson goes 2 for 14, 7 yards per carry. 7 yards per carry on 2 carries. That does not make a game. I'm sure he would have done better than Peyton Barber, but I still don't think he would have gotten to 4 yards per carry. I don't even know if he would have gotten to 3.5 yards per carry. But Peyton Barber gets that all-important touchdown, really kind of turning the tide in the game when he got that touchdown. Logan Thomas, that big touchdown grab as well. 9 catches on 9 targets, 98 yards. Cam Sims, what a beast. The 5 catches, 92 yards. Didn't get a key one at the end, but also got the key one. J.D. McKissick, 10 catches, 70 yards on 10 targets. Pittsburgh, especially when Hayden went out, they had nothing on that side of the field. McKissick was just eating them up. What a game. What a game by Washington. I usually don't go into defense, but let me look here. Not a single sack of Ben Roethlisberger. Not a single sack of Ben Roethlisberger. But tackles for losses, Washington's defense, like I said, flying around the field all game. Let me talk about this because I thought that the Giants would lose to Seattle. I thought that Washington would lose to Pittsburgh. Here they are. They both won. They're both 5-7 going into week 14. Let me read you the rest of the games for Washington, and I have the Giants schedule up. I haven't done this. I haven't prepared. I'm just going to go off the fly in my instinct, right? Instant reaction. That's what this is all about. Washington versus San Francisco. That's a loss, Washington. I think it's a loss. Washington versus Seattle. The way that defense is playing and the way that the Seattle Seahawks defense is playing, I'm saying that the Washington defense is so good and the Seattle Seahawks defense is questionable to me, and Russell Wilson is kind of taking a little bit of a step back. I'm curious about that one, and I love how Kendall Fuller covers. Now, I don't think anybody can cover DK Metcalf, but if Fuller can try to lock up with Lockett, and maybe they can double or triple cover DK Metcalf, that could be more of a game. I'm interested in that one. 49ers, I was just messing around. I don't know if that's going to be a win or a loss. I do think that San Francisco stacks up well against Washington, but hell, I thought Pittsburgh stacked up well against Washington too. If you're going to look at that from a high level, you would say Seattle's the more likely loss out of those, but it's not outside the realm of possibility they finish 2-0. I think it's more likely in those next two games they finish 1-1. So I'm going to give them 6-8. Then they play the Panthers at home. I think they win that one, go to 7-8. Then they play the Eagles on the road to end the season. That one's going to be an interesting one because if Carson Wentz would be the starter there, I'd say Washington all day. I'm really curious what Jalen Hurts going to be there. I think best case for Washington, 8-8 to end the season. Worst case for Washington, I think is, I guess worst case they lose all the games. But realistically, worst case scenario, 6-10? But realistically, I think that they're probably going to be 8-8 or 7-9 to end the year, and that might be enough to get them in. Now let's look at the rest of the New York Giants schedule. Also 5-7. Remember, New York is 2-0 against Washington this season. They own the tiebreaker, so Washington needs to finish at least a half game ahead of New York in the standings because the tiebreaker is already set there. The Giants play the Cardinals. I believe the Cardinals will win that game. Giants fall to 5-8. They play the Cleveland Browns. That, to me, for the Browns is a little bit of a trap game. I think the Giants steal that one. I think they go to 6-8. I think they play the Ravens, or I know they play the Ravens in Week 16. I believe they lose that game, go to 6-9, and then they play the Cowboys at the end of the season. I believe they win that game. I believe they go 7-9. So Washington, at this point, I believe they need to go 3-1 to end the season. Let me read you their schedule once again. It's San Francisco, Seattle, Carolina, and Philadelphia. I believe that San Francisco game next week is a must-win. A must-win game for Washington. And yes, I know there are other teams in the division. Don't count out Philadelphia if they do go with Jalen Hurts. That could be an interesting development as well. Now, let me talk about Pittsburgh, man. We know the drops. I've been saying it all season when I'm doing these reaction videos. Drives you nuts. Drives me nuts too because I have fantasy players involved in these Pittsburgh Steelers, and I have money on the Pittsburgh Steelers, so it drives me a little nuts. I'm a little bit lighter on my feet though because I'm sorry, Steelers fans. I have to delight in the misery because Juju Smith-Schuster didn't light the world on fire this week. He did have 7 catches for crying out loud, 28 yards, but didn't really do much. I actually got into the fantasy playoffs in my primary league. I'm the dominant team in that primary league. I've been on the injured reserve all freaking year, every one of my players, just like I'm sure a lot of you out there. Look, Anthony McFarland, I thought the Steelers would be able to run a little bit more. I know they're not a running team, but 4 carries for 15 yards for McFarland, 8 carries for 5 yards for Benny Snell. Snell looked like trash. I was curious because James Conner isn't going to be an unrestricted free agent. By the way, Le'Veon Bell is an unrestricted free agent. Frankly, it would not shock me if Le'Veon Bell comes back to Pittsburgh on a discount. I don't know that if his pride would allow that. I don't know if Pittsburgh's management team would allow that, but it would be nice, I guess, from an NFL fan's point of view to see him back there. Steelers fans, comment below. Tell me what you think. McFarland, 4 for 15. He was their best running back. They just didn't go to that well, but it's Pittsburgh. They usually don't go to that well. Roethlisberger, 33 of 53, 305, 2 touchdowns and an interception. I'm not going to talk about completion percentage. I mentioned it last week as well with Baltimore. It's the drops. I mean, what were there, 6, 7, 8 drops or something like that? Could have easily been 40 of 53. This week. It's ridiculous, but, credit Washington. They were in the heads of the Steelers wide receivers. And the Steelers, Diontae Johnson, Eric Ebron specifically calling them out. And I like Diontae Johnson quite a bit. You need to concentrate, for crying out loud. James Washington, 2 catches, 80 yards, 1 touchdown. At least he's clutch. You can always count on him. Diontae Johnson, in spite of the drops, gets 8 receptions, 71 yards, a touchdown on 12 targets. Ebron had a nice day, 7 catches, 68 yards, and 11 targets. Could have had probably 11 catches if he could actually, close his hands over the ball. Chase Chase Claypool, you got to credit Washington for limiting him, but you also have to take more shots to Chase Claypool. Only 4 targets. Look, I know he's probably covered. I'm sure Washington's shifted some coverage over there. Take the shots. You got to take the shots. Juju, like I said, 7 catches, 28 yards. Jalen Samuels, they finally started rotating him in when I think they realized that Benny Snell was trash. At least this week. 3 catches, 11 yards. Snell was awful this week, just awful. Ray McLeod, 2 catches for 4 yards. So Washington's defense clamped down. Again, I had this game at 30-20. I thought Pittsburgh would be able to move the ball offensively a little bit better. Even if Pittsburgh caught all those balls I'm talking about with their drops, they still would have had a tough time putting the ball in the end zone. I think best case for Pittsburgh could have finished maybe 26-23 or something like that. But you got to credit Washington, man. They came to play. Pittsburgh was not the better team today. Washington earned it. Congratulations to Washington. Great win. Pittsburgh, tough loss. Now you have Indianapolis and Buffalo in addition to Cleveland at the end of the season. I think they'll rebound and play well against Buffalo. But gosh, I thought after the poor performance against Baltimore, and I know there's limited rest. I get it. I know Pouncey was out. I get it. But this is the NFL. You got to play the games. Pittsburgh didn't show up today. Washington did. Washington earned the victory, and I thought it was a pretty convincing victory with what Washington was able to do on the field. If they were 2 teams were to meet again, I think Pittsburgh would probably win the day, but it wasn't this day. Any given Sunday or I guess Monday, a team can win. So once again, congratulations, Washington. Decent shot at making the playoffs here, but you got to outdo the Giants. Pittsburgh, we'll see where you end up. I think that number 1 seed is in jeopardy given that Kansas City has a pretty an easier end of the season in terms of schedule than the Pittsburgh Steelers do, but we'll see what happens. Pittsburgh got to show up, got to peak at the right time. We'll catch you again on more reactions. Thanks for watching, everybody.